Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a little power surge. It's time for a strongman. It's time for a man to come on to Sportswire Radio and kind of clear the deck, you might want to say, but also get us ready, not only for Vortex 23 tomorrow night, which we're going to certainly talk about on the NEW YouTube channel, but also get you ready for Stay Alive, where uniquely this man is going to be in a match that should certainly suit him more than anybody else, where he defends his Northeast Championship, where all he has to do is win by knockout. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we've interviewed and spoke with a lot of people over the past 5 years on Sportswire Radio. I highly doubt anybody is knocking out this man. But I'll talk about that and some. Plus, I'll talk about his journey, which has led him into fitness competitions, bodybuilding, being a personal trainer, but also a man that has been a huge anchor to what we've seen, not only in this sport, but also being a huge part of All Wrestling Matters, and share his personal story of trials, tribulations, peaks and valleys, and maybe everything else in between. Although, ladies and gentlemen, I'll promise you that there really isn't too many valleys that this man has had because, like I said, look at the size of this man. I highly doubt, despite what he may say tonight on the air, that he's had too many types of valleys. But we'll get into all of that here and some. It's a real treat for us here on Sportswire Radio to continue to talk all things related here to the world of NEW and get you ready for all things related to Stay Alive and Vortex 23. So, as I know that so many of his colleagues who are in the locker room, and maybe even the guy that I'm actually wearing a shirt of with, his partner in Redux, Mr. Jake Matthews. Yes, well, I'm going to get to him. I'm going to definitely get to him. I promise you. I'll have a lot to say. Don't worry. It'll be plenty of good things for sure, because obviously I'm wearing his shirt, and he definitely proved his worth, and I'll get your opinions on him, certainly, and some. But I think it's time to give you, hopefully, that power surge-like introduction that many of your peers have gotten that have come on to Sportswire Radio, but I highly doubt that you've ever gotten in NEW, but you'll certainly get it, and maybe you'll remember it for the ages. Plus, I'll even have something I'm going to give you tonight. You'll have to stay tuned for it, because I promise you, you'll definitely like it and some. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to bring this man on. Let's give him that introduction that I've been waiting for, he's been waiting for, and the world has been waiting for here on Thursday night on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the reigning, defending, new underground wrestling Northeast champion. They may call him a strongman. From the group Redux. Simply put, they call him Powersurge. The champ is here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Certainly with you on the air, we're looking at the size of you. I better make sure I give this guy a good introduction, because if I don't, he'll probably find me, knock on my door, and kill me. But I'm only kidding. Obviously, we're just kidding. I'm trying to work on stand-up comedy in case I get canceled on Sportswire Radio. But It is an absolute honor to have you. And it looks like you're actually in a Power Surge like setup, but I'll definitely get to that later on. Plus, as I promised, I actually have something for you, but I want to talk about obviously a lot of current events. And tomorrow, Redux is in action on the New Underground Wrestling YouTube page, and I'll certainly plug that in a second. I'll even pull it up on the screen for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire. Yes, I've worked on some of the technology here in the platform, but you guys are in action against a man you're going to see in 2 weeks from now, coming up tomorrow, for your Northeast Championship, which we're going to certainly talk a lot about. But Redux is in action against Prince Chandler and D Savage. So for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters, tell us what we can expect from you and your tag team partner, your best friend, the one and only, Born to Battle winner, the best on the card, Mr. Jake Matthews. What are we going to expect from you guys tomorrow at Vortex 23?
Oh, nothing but complete and utter dominance over those two.
Well, I saw after, I think, was it 2 shows ago? Was it 21 where you did to D Savage on the outside? It was like, I'm sure we'll play it on the screen in a little while. Like those punches, it was almost like in slow motion. The slow motion like punches of yours was you were like keeping him like almost like tied to the wall. It was almost like in slow motion. Those punches still would have basically killed anybody else. So, I mean, I don't know what else could be different tomorrow night.
Well, I'll give Savage credit for being able to take those ones, but he doesn't have the best tag team partner for tomorrow night.
Okay, let me ask you then a question. Obviously, you guys have been very busy, but do you look at this as maybe a warm-up for what's to come at Stay Alive? I mean, I know we're two weeks away, but give me your thoughts on that.
Oh, very true. Savage, I don't want to discredit him too much, but he's a very technical wrestler, very technical sound, but he hasn't learned everything yet. So I still need to teach him some more. Now, Chandler, to his credit, former world champion.
Sure.
I'll give him that. However, when he beat me for it, it was after I was already in a match and he cashed in.
I was going to say, looking at the size and strength of you, it'd be very few people on this earth that I could think of anywhere. It doesn't even matter what company, what type of thing it is that could actually beat you in a one-on-one match fairly. I'll be totally straight up.
The numbers are low.
Pretty much, yeah. So, I mean, he's obviously got something that he wants to prove, not only for himself, but also his sister, Rhea Silver, especially after what, your tag team partner, Jake Matthews, did to Rhea Silver. I mean, do you think in any ways, is it fair for me to ask that D Savage is going to have some early motivation and incentives to kind of especially target you tomorrow on Vortex?
I'm sure to get any advantage that he can get. He wants that title. He's going to try and do what he can, but it's just not going to work. Any move he has, I have a reversal to.
For sure, but he's also got, in a way, he's fighting not just for himself, but he's fighting for his family. He's fighting for the family name. I mean, do you think that still that's going to maybe work in a way that's going to give him, maybe from his vantage point, an extra power surge, you might want to say?
It could, but, anger can blind people.
True. No, there's no question that it can work the other way. Your forces can, maybe you think, would want to channel you, but maybe direct you from the match. But, a couple of weeks ago when we saw, obviously, he wanted the shot at you on Vortex 21, I mean, he was kind of forceful, basically. And, he looked like he said some things where, he wasn't afraid to go toe-to-toe with you. Is that where he knows something, or is that maybe kind of misguided calculations, or maybe some type of level of overconfidence from his standpoint?
Well, I could definitely see it as overconfidence. I mean, the last time we faced, I passed him out with a sharpshooter. Now he thinks he earned some rematch somehow because he didn't do that well in the Born to Battle briefcase match, if I recall.
Nope. That's a very, very valid point. We spoke about that here before it aired with Jake when I think we were literally a couple of days before the show. So I agree with you. He hasn't done as well recently, but there is sometimes, and we see this all the time in sports. Obviously, you're an athlete. You certainly do a lot of physical training, personal training, you do bodybuilding competitions, all that stuff. And maybe that would still give him some motivation, but you're still feeling that tomorrow it's going to be more of the same and what Redux is going to do. And maybe in a way, from your guys' vantage point, conversely, it's almost a kind of preview of what you guys are going to do to stay alive. Is that maybe a fair point I should bring up?
That's very fair. But one thing with Redux is we always have the numbers.
And that's obviously been spoken about. And Jake kind of mentioned that in his promo after he had won, the Board to Battle briefcase, where he basically had said, like everybody's, hasn't wanted us, but we're here and, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. So those are some fair points. And I have a lot of comments here because if I don't get to these comments, I'm going to certainly be feeling bad. So first of all, before I get to Mr. Matthews, I want to say hello to one of my new buddies, by the way, who caught on to me from my interview yesterday with the one and only Jimmy Controversy, which I have a feeling you actually know who he is. And Mr. Controversy was here, and he's always got controversy. As a matter of fact, I even asked Mr. Controversy yesterday on the show, since Hardcore has pulled out from the Riot in the Ring coming up in early June, if Mr. Controversy would want to take his place. And Mr. Controversy actually wound up saying that he was certainly said never say never. So we'll certainly see about that. But let me get to a bunch of comments. So thank you, Nate, for tuning in. So let's go on here first. It says, yes, the Power Surge is here. And the pleasure's all mine here. Listen, you could tell me anytime, any place, anywhere to speak with Power Surge, I'll be there. So let me put it that way. And yes, we certainly love it. And I think Mr. Matthews loved my intro, which I appreciate that. I think, it's funny. I just had on a British wrestler from the UK earlier today, Champagne Charlie. And, one of the things we were speaking about, on or off the air, actually both, was I think what everybody remembers on Sportswire isn't who's come on the show or how many views. It's the intro. So I think that's kind of been my calling card over the years. So I appreciate that he had liked it. And we'll worry about Prince whenever he actually shows up. You have a comment on that from your tag team partner? Because I know that's obviously been a common theme, more or less.
Yeah, he's been quite the part-timer in recent times. Maybe his heart's just not in it.
I mean, I know you guys spoke a little bit about that on the Instagram page. I'm going to pull up all the social medias in a second, actually on the screen. If you want to, in the meantime, you could follow it in a second. I'm going to pull all that up. But, when you have somebody like that, and that's got to put a trust issue in D Savage's mind, because D Savage is relying on somebody to, as you talked about just now, having the numbers game. But if he doesn't have Prince Chandler, I mean, I'm not good at many things, but as far as I know, you guys would have a significant advantage because 2-on-1 is, it's 2-on-1. It's 2 against 1. I mean, that's a pretty significant advantage. Maybe in that case, D Savage should also maybe take an early, Easter weekend off and maybe just not show up and maybe find where the Easter Bunny is.
It would do better for his body, that would be sure.
Well, we'll have to find out here. And I'm not sure why the $4.99 comes up. Is a $4.99 comment? I don't know why the $4.99 is. But, okay, I appreciate that. I have a good question, though, from Nate. Let me get to that here, and I'll take slightly away. I want to go to Stay Alive in a second, but he has a question here. If you had to fight one wrestler from the past or present, who would it be? If you had a wrestler you like to, it could be anyway. It could be here in the company, it could be outside of the company, would there be any person you would like to square off with?
Wow.
I know it's a loaded question because there's so many ways. I tell people all the time when these questions come up, because people ask this stuff from time to time. I say, answer it the whatever way you like.
If we're going pro-wise, I would probably say, oh man, I was always a huge fan of Japanese wrestling. I love all wrestling, but Japanese wrestling, that style really influenced me.
Sure.
And I would say like a younger Minoru Suzuki.
Okay.
Love to have done that type of match. But it hurt like hell, but I loved it.
And the $4.99 is a super chat we sent you. Donations to the best podcast. Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Now I'll certainly know how do I check that, but I appreciate that. So thank you for that. I'll figure that out maybe later. So that's interesting. That's interesting. You mentioned Japan because I see a lot of different influences from you. Let's take a slight detour from Stay Alive. I want to come back to that for sure. I want to talk about Jake because I got Jake's shirt on. But in terms of your style, you have a very unique style. When I watch a lot of wrestling, right? I watch a lot of wrestling in the underground. I don't know if you want to call it the independents, the pros, the backyard, but your style is so unique from what you do as a big man, from your move set, from your physique. I mean, who are, let's say, some of your influences in terms of where you are, in terms of what you do in the ring?
There's a lot of them. Undertaker was always a big one.
I hear that a lot from big guys. I hear that a lot. Understandably so.
Alone. Lesnar was the big one.
Well, your background, I could certainly see that influence.
And like a lot of I always wanted to be a big guy. I love being a big guy, but I always didn't want to be like pigeonholed into like one thing. Like
Sure.
Like a Goldberg, like you're a one-trick pony. It's just like, no, I want to be big, but I want to be able to move and work. So like guys like Kurt Angle, Bret Hart really influenced me now.
Well, it's funny you said Bret Hart last night because I still have it. Actually, you're going to chuckle. I still have the WWE Network. There's a way I have it. And I watched The Undertaker versus Bret Hart at the 1996 Royal Rumble. So there you go. What a small world.
Yeah, and like, those ones like influenced me a lot more nowadays to work on being able to just be a better technical wrestler and tell a better story in the ring.
How do you maybe use what you do? Because your move set is so unique. I've seen you do what you do with your power bombs, your drop kicks, kind of some of your reversal moves, and even some of your submission stuff. Not everybody in the ring has what you bring to the table. So from, let's say, a storyline aspect, how do you try to incorporate that stuff in a way that also where, as crazy as it sounds, your opponents can keep up with you and continue to tell that story about what you do in the ring so well, champ?
A lot of it is like I study every opponent I wrestle to see how to blend the styles that make them work. You always like my philosophy with that is like accentuate the positives of everyone and really exploit those. So like, and like with certain people, like I can work with, like we just go back and forth with submissions back to back and it just clicks better. And other people, it's more of a fight. And I like that. Like I'm able to do most styles, which I think helps me in the ring to be a better wrestler, to be able to work with anybody.
Do you have a style that you prefer? Well, I mean, I've seen you. I was watching stuff with you and Jake. There's a highlight video, which I'm going to pull up in a second. I mean, you guys literally put your body through everything. But is there a style? Because again, your style isn't necessarily the quintessential. Let's say, for example, Riot in the Ring has come up. We have guys like my buddy Stephen Havoc or Hardcore who was in it. That was going to be a number, even guys from the TF crew who are going to be a part of it. And even, but like in terms of some of the things you like to do, is there a favorite type of style that you prefer more or less?
I guess lack of a better phrasing of it would be the strong style.
Okay.
I'm very big proponent of that, but I'm not afraid to get hardcore if I need to.
Well, look at your moveset and your body frame. I mean, we're certainly not going to say that, nobody's going to certainly question you on that. And if you want to follow our friends here at New Underground Wrestling, you can actually do that right here on Instagram. So if you're a guy like Nate that's just gotten a hold of us on Sportzwire Radio, you can see some of the great footage. You can see what a great group of people here. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. These guys are just awesome. These guys and gals do a phenomenal job. They're getting ready for their sixth season, which means if you're a TV fan, they actually could be qualified for syndication. They're doing a phenomenal job. They're out here in the Northeast. They got a great group of talents. Many of them are going to come on to Sportswire Radio. I have no doubt in the coming weeks. We know that Mr. Matthews is going to come on here, and they've got a big show coming up here on April the 13th. 2 weeks coming up from tomorrow. So that's actually Saturday. So all wrestling that matters, make sure you go out and support our friends at New Underground Wrestling. And I want to give a big shout out to our buddy that designed it, because what a small world that this man is, Mr. DG Colt, because he knows some of the same people that come on to Sportswire Radio very regularly here. So I really appreciate that. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling. So Nate, hold on to the comments. I want to actually come back here to stay alive. So stay alive. We have the show coming up April the 13th, which is 2 weeks from Saturday. You are defending that Northeast Championship, and you're defending it in a style. Well, I mean, was this designed pretty much for you? I mean, this is just, one of the more unique things we're going to see coming up for any company, where the winner of each match, doesn't win it by pinfall or submission. They win it by knockout. I mean, for you, I mean, if you had a middle name, which I don't think you do because you're just Powersurge, I mean, this would have to be like the middle name for you coming up and stay alive. I mean, you got to feel as excited as anybody else to wrestle on April the 13th because you're wrestling in a match that fits you to a T, I would think.
Oh, I'm very excited for this one. Savage has no clue what he's getting himself into.
Now, don't tell us what you're going to do, though, coming up on 2 weeks from Saturday, because we actually want to watch the show. But, you know, when it comes to something like this, now, I know you've done a lot of things, and I know certainly Vortex will see more from you. And obviously, you know, we've seen a lot over the past several weeks, especially with what you do at Redux. But I'm curious on this question because I have a lot of people that come onto the show from time to time. I interview all types of people. And do you train differently for, let's say, a more intense match like this one than maybe different ones that you have, even let's say for tomorrow, for example? I'm always curious on that.
Yes, a lot of my training is based on my opponents. So, like, if I'm facing a lighter person, my workouts are more endurance based, just to be able to keep up. Always keeping strength in there, but like the focus just more goes toward conditioning. If it's a bigger guy, I lean more towards the strength side of things.
When it comes to, let's say, you talked about some of the things such as a more intense match or a body guy, for example, do you prepare differently in maybe what you look to do in the ring, or is that more of an outside conditioning issue? Because conditioning is always key. For example, as my guest today, who was inducted into our Hall of Fame, Champagne Charlie, is kind of like you. He's wrestling in a submission match this coming weekend. So without giving away the strategy, I was speaking with him and talking about, okay, so what do you do differently? What do you do in terms of more or less, how do you prepare for, you know, let's say a match that you aren't used to? Now, he's about 6'2", I'd say 215, but he does not have the muscle that you have. So he was talking about training and hitting the gym, but not so much to build up muscle, but to more or less train in a way that would help him in terms of the agility aspect of it. So I'm just curious in what maybe outside the ring you do to prepare conditioning wise for a match like this that we're going to see 2 weeks from Saturday.
For me, it's a lot of kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, a little bit of judo. Like, so I martial arts is where I go and lean towards.
You look like you would be in martial arts looking at you.
Yeah, started getting into that. Have to be.
And I want to give a big shout out to actually somebody that's asked me a question on Twitter, one of my biggest supporters out there. Her name is Miss Angela Pink. She is out there in the friendly confines of Midwood, Brooklyn, and she wanted to specifically ask you about your diet and how do you get ready for matches. So that's a good question because you're also a personal trainer and you're certified now, which I'm going to bring up in a few minutes. But I mean, that's a great question. I hadn't thought of that. That's why obviously I take comments from the people that want to tune in and listen, because clearly I'm not doing my job. It's only a joke. I'm trying to stand up comedy. But, you know, how do you get ready for matches and, you know, your diet? Because, you know, I had Charlie on earlier and, well, his diet's probably nowhere near as good as you. And most people that come on the platform wouldn't be. But, you want to talk about those things? I think it's a great question.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of my diet is I eat very low carbs.
Okay.
And that's because of like certain health issues,
which we'll talk about in a little while for sure.
Yes. So like my diet's very low carb. The fats are pretty high and the protein. So like I'm a red meat guy. Like I love steaks.
Are you on like the it's the carnivore only diet? I was listening to Eric Bischoff the other day. He basically said he's only on like this meat diet. That's it. It's all he eats. He doesn't even eat anything else throughout the day. He's just on this meat diet. And I was listening to that on his podcast and I'm like, is that possible? I would never have thought of something like that. And I'm just curious now that comes to mind.
It has shown great benefits, like for giving people more energy and quicker weight loss, because you're literally only eating red meat and maybe eggs. But like my diet resembles that, but I do eat a lot more vegetables and fruits.
Well, Well, certainly, although in my case, I might need to eat to actually gain weight, but that's a joke that Angela would get. But that is a good question, and I think about eggs, obviously, because we're in Easter season there, and I do have a couple of other comments. Let me get to them. And do you get this here? Yet you look like Brody King from AEW. Well, I mean, I don't know, maybe I don't know.
I've heard that one a little bit. I've heard Jason Momoa.
I don't know if I just saw Aquaman 2. I would not want to be compared to Jason Momoa. I got to be honest. I did not like Aquaman 2 at all. So I would say scratch that one.
Yeah, not for that one. A Viking, because I had like the braid.
Yeah, I could see the Viking, and I think somebody mentioned it on Instagram. I could see a little bit of that. The Viking thing, I could see.
And some of like the indie locker rooms I've been called Brody Lee.
Well, that's with heavy hearts for sure. That's definitely one that I'm curious on this actually, since you just brought up you've been in indie locker rooms. Obviously, you're here in New Underground Wrestling, and we love New Underground Wrestling. I can't say good enough things about the company, and there's a lot of friends that we have in the company that were actually part of the TF crew. Obviously, like my buddy Mr. Gabe Sayers, who I saw not too long ago. By the way, you almost killed a guy in an arm wrestling contest, and I saw Gabe was right in the background. Good old Gabe Sayers. I'm sure I'll have a Gabe Sayers comment or two in a second, but how do you use your experience as being in indie locker rooms to come in and maybe help some of the guys and gals that you work with here in New Underground Wrestling? Because obviously, you've been really accomplished. You've had really an accomplished career in so many other this, but how do you use those experiences maybe help some of our maybe younger talent and different people here that are trying to make it in New Underground Wrestling?
A lot of it's just like beforehand, I always made it a key when we film to try and train, get in there, move a little bit. That's the best thing you can do. To go out there and just like, yeah, you can talk about your matches and like lay them out, but you gotta feel it out too. And if you move too stiff or like you're not sure, like it's the best way to go about it.
I don't know how you pulled that off, but I'll go with it because I'm not going to argue with you. And I have a bunch of more questions here. Let me get to another question from Angela before I get to Nate and now Mr. Rodriguez. What do you think about, this is from Angela, what do you think about breathing exercises? She hears some athletes start focusing on breathing techniques. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Because I hadn't really heard of that, but I'm sure you would have a better take than I would because I'm hearing you're there.
I think a lot of it's just like, especially like endurance to like control it. Like that can help. With like heavy lifting, learning how to call breathe and brace. You taking a big belly breath and it helps you with a lift. Which like think of it like if you have a full soda can, you can set things on top of it. If it's stomach, it crushes.
Well, that sounds like when I was back in science class. It reminds me of my earth science teacher where you had all those kind of weird science projects and you did that. But before I come back to some more people, I want to specifically say hello to my very good buddy who is out in Australia watching us, Mr. Ace Reed of the Wired Up podcast. I always joke that Ace could be the man that will replace me on Sportswire Radio as I should pass the baton to somebody. And Ace would definitely do that. He's done a great job. He's interviewed Jack Delta, of course, my buddy and everybody else's buddy, Jack Delta. He's also interviewed Jackson Law, and he's got to get Jake Matthews and Powersurge onto his podcast. He is doing a phenomenal job out there, and I think it's almost midnight in Australia. So, Ace, hope you're doing well, my friend, and thank you for your support as always. And let me get to some more questions. Probably best protein, can't say no to a steak. I know this isn't. How are you doing, by the way, my friend? But he says he's gonna laugh, though. I'm not joking. Viking. So he goes with the. See, I told you the Viking would come up. And anything you want to say to him?
Yeah, I love him to death. He's funny. He's a good
guy. Very good guy. Very good guy.
A Viking.
Well, that's why we wanted to bring up his comment. I have a okay question. I'm gonna let Nate ask it. I'm not sure if you'd be interested or not, but would you like to go to wrestle for GTS?
I'm not against it. Like, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, the reason I could bring it up necessarily because names of mutual friends of ours. Like for example, Mr. Gabe Sayers has been on their TV. The Puerto Rican Prince Angel Santiago, who I know you've shared a battle royal with, or a rumble you might want to call it, last summer. He's been a part of their product. And another guy that I have no doubt will probably see you cross paths with one day, Mikey Anarchy. So I mean, those guys are all a huge part of GTS. And I have also, speaking of GTS, I have on their Intercontinental Champion Monday night, right after the start of Monday Night Raw. That is Mr. Rad Dad of the Stepdad. So Rad Dad is here, the GTS Intercontinental Champion. What an honor that is. He is a part of the 7th biggest wrestling company on all of YouTube. And he's going to be here with the Intercontinental Championship. He's going to talk about Mikey Anarchy, which means he's probably going to talk about Gabe Sayers, because guess what? Rad Dad is also going to be wrestling at the TF Crew's next big live outdoor show coming up later this spring. So, I mean, a lot to talk about, a lot of mutual, wrestling is such a small world, I've noticed. It's funny because like I was looking at your Instagram. I'm like, oh, he knows him. I know him. Do you know that? It's like, and then, you bring up Gabe Sayers and everybody else. And, those are great things. And how am I doing? I'm doing great. I'm speaking here with Powersurge. How could I not be doing anything other than great? Because look at the size of this man. Look at what he does. And, that's why we're here on Sportzwire Radio. I want you to follow Powersurge. Check him out on Instagram. And also, one more time, I want to bring it up here. Make sure you follow our friends over at New Underground Wrestling, because they have an Instagram channel here. There we go. I was like waiting for it. Where it goes. There we go. That was where you can check them out on Instagram. You can also pull them up on YouTube. I'm going to pull their YouTube channel up here very shortly. So we're going to go like this and then go like this. The magic of technology, because I can share the screen that almost nobody else on all these other platforms can do. So there you go. You can support them here on Instagram, YouTube. That's their YouTube channel. Check out all the latest shows. Vortex, if you want to watch the most recent Vortex, watch it there. If you want to watch episode 21, watch it there. If you want to watch all these different great shows, and how about my buddy Stefan Havoc? He's going to be in Riot in the Ring. If you want to watch anything that they have to offer, you can watch it, all of it here. Make sure you support them and everything that they do here, because it's about all wrestling matters, and we want to support our friends over at New Underground Wrestling. And of course, the Northeast champion, the one and only Mr. Powersurge. Oh God. Well, I'm gonna leave that for a different time. And I appreciate that you do some work as a mafia boss. So, I wanted to ask you this question, and I don't know if you'd want to answer. Let's do it right away. I always ask this question to people that come onto the show, but what are your goals for this year in 2024? I know it's been a couple of months out, but I always like to ask people that come on for the first time here, and what are your goals in this year of 2024?
To myself, I want to definitely progress the indie wrestling. I've been chasing that a lot more. I'm also making a comeback to my strongman competition. I have 2 competitions lined up in the summer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm looking to make a comeback with that too, on top of the wrestling.
So how do you find time to do anything else? I mean, do you sleep? Do you do anything else? I mean, all this stuff is intense training, especially when you talk about, fitness competitions, like doing strongman stuff. One of my friends who's a wrestler in the UK, his name is Sheriff Steele. He does that stuff. And I always speak to him when I'm like, how do you sleep? How do you function? And so how do you find time to balance all these things?
When you love something so much, it doesn't at all. But I enjoy this. So it always gives me something to keep my mind focused, which always makes my days go by so easy. And I sleep great, believe it or not.
Really? You sleep great? I mean, after all the things you do, you really sleep great? I mean, boy, you must be doing something that none of us are doing. And Angela, I'm going to answer it for you. I don't think he's single. So certainly, poor Angela, sorry about that. But he is very honored, though, that you're here on the platform watching us. But I think she was kidding. She was just joking around. So she likes to joke. So we appreciate the joke. It was definitely very funny. But, obviously, you do certain things. And I'm curious for those that are listening and watching. And you had a situation a few years back that maybe kind of stunted some of the things you were doing currently. And I'll come back to independent wrestling for a second as well. But talk about what happened to you a few years back and kind of how it shaped not only who you were in that moment, but kind of who you are today and how you've bounced back and, probably at the best point you've ever been in your career.
Yeah. In 2018, I was competing as a strongman while also backyard wrestling. At the time of my competition in April, I was 250 pounds and competing. And then from April up until about October 28th, I was about 198 pounds.
Oh my God! Wow.
A lot of it, we couldn't figure out what it was. Like, my diet didn't really change. It was never really awful to begin with, but never really.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure out. I was like, why am I still losing weight? And I noticed I was going to the bathroom a lot. I'm like, I feel like I'm literally, I'm literally peeing out my body weight.
Oh my God.
Tell me, no, you're crazy. Turns out I wasn't that off. My glucose was literally leave. That was the only way I could leave my body. And they're like, okay, well, let's see. And they pricked my finger. Now, a normal blood sugar level is between 70 and 150.
Okay.
Yeah. Mine was 600.
Oh my goodness.
And me not knowing anything at the time.
Did you take a chair shot from Jake Matthews? Was that the reason why you went from 70 to 150 to 600? Did Jake put you through something? Let's say put you through a table or through some barbed wire, which he has done in the past. Did that lead to it?
No, that
I thought you'd laugh.
But he told me, I'm just like, is that bad? Because I didn't know any better at the time. I'm like, is that bad? Well,
Sure.
They'd be in either a coma or dead.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad you're not neither.
Well, thank you. That changed a lot, and I had to that's where my diet really came in. And I never thought, you go through that whole process, I'm never going to be strong again. I can't be myself anymore. Like, all that mental stuff that comes with it. And then I was getting tattooed, and my tattoo artist, of all people, she showed me this documentary called The Magic Pill, which is about keto. And I saw it, and I did it, and I was able to put it into remission with keto, which is very rare. And I still have to watch it every now and then. That's why I still keep the carbs super low. But I was able to reverse it with my diet.
Oh my God. So you were kind of lucky in a sense, right? After going through that, just to basically change your diet, and here you are today, and that's all it was. I mean, you really were lucky in that sense.
I was lucky and very stubborn to give up because I refused. I'm going to get back to normal, but because that happened, I stopped strongman, and all my focus went into wrestling. And I really put 110% into getting better at wrestling. Because at that time, 2018, I wasn't near anything what I can do now. I mean, I wasn't really connecting with punches. I know Jake had mentioned that before. Like, my greatest. I was there. I was still trying, but it's light years away from where I'm at now.
How did that experience shape you, just, even in your overall day in and day life? I mean, that's a serious thing that, it's almost to quote earlier show I had on with Champion Charlie, that's a make or break moment in somebody's life. I mean, how did that shape you?
It definitely, I think, helped me mentally be able to push through things better afterwards. Because obviously, when it first hit, I was a wreck.
Oh, for sure. I would imagine.
Yeah, as time went on, I was able to figure it out and change everything. And I feel like it made me a lot stronger mentally to get through things. Like, I got this. Instead of panicking and not knowing what to do, it's like, okay, here's what we need to do to get through a situation. It very much calmed me now to where I'm not in a panic every time something happens.
Do you get asked a lot about this when you're in different locker rooms, or maybe even in the NEW locker room? Do you get asked a lot about this?
Not really. I'm usually, unless people get to know me, I'm usually a quiet person.
You're not Jake Matthews then.
That's my bro. I love him to death.
No, we love Jake. Jake is the man. I'm wearing his shirt, by the way. I think what he does is just fantastic. I mean, it's just,
Oh, yeah. Dude, would never dare go in a promo against him. That man.
Oh, I wouldn't even do it because, I mean, and I speak every day, and I wouldn't go tenfold near Jake Matthews, and he backs it up. I mean, here's a guy that's been doing this for 15 years. I mean, he's got all my respect in the world. He's a guy that literally, he says pull up or shut up. He means put up or shut up. He's definitely the definition of that. And I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Joshua Allen. Speaking of backyard wrestling, he's the owner and founder of Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. They have their 158 Go Home show before their show next week, and I want to say hello to him because he's here saying hi, and he's in my Hall of Fame, so I want to make sure we say hello. Also, hello, everyone. Yes, hello to you, Blazing522. I want to make sure that you are tuned in with us. But, you talked about you're an independent wrestler, and you're obviously in a lot of locker rooms. And, I don't mean to ask this question, but I'll still ask it. Do people know in those locker rooms that you still, let's say, do stuff in the backyard? And, and conversely, if so, what do they say? And then also, in a way, do you get asked a lot for advice now that you're a guy that's, really accomplished? I mean, you've got a really accomplished career as a wrestler being in, different promotions. So I'm curious on kind of that two-part question and, where it goes from here for you on those things.
A lot of it on the indies is when I go to a new place, it's always that they kind of like, it's not that they're new, but they kind of like, okay, like who's this guy?
Right.
How did he get here? And then after I wrestle, I come back to the locker room. They're like, okay. I don't like toot my own horn like that. I don't like to do that, but it's just they see me wrestle and say, okay, this guy knows how to work. I'm like, yeah, I busted my butt to get here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, listen, you put a lot of time into it. You definitely earned, you had the work ethic. You earned, the abilities that you put the time into it. And, maybe that's a good thing. I'm curious on this question, and tell me your thoughts. I think sometimes there's one problem I have with independent wrestling companies, in that they don't know how to promote themselves like in the backyard. In the backyard, everybody knows how to work YouTube. Everybody knows how to work the reels. I mean, you have reels with 9,000, 11,000, 5,000, so on and so on. We look at NEW shows, hundreds upon hundreds of views. Anti-Everything's already got, several hundred views. And, sometimes, and again, I say this with no disrespect, I interview tons of wrestlers all the time. But I feel like in some ways, backyard wrestlers get disrespected. But the facts are is that backyard and underground wrestlers do a far better job at promoting themselves than some of the independent wrestlers. And I'm just curious on what you think about that. And why is it that backyarders and YouTubers or undergrounds, whatever you want to call it this point, I'll even go with the semi-pro term, that they know how to promote better than a lot of these independent companies?
A lot of it is like just a drive. Like I just think a lot of backyarders, especially nowadays, are like driven to do better. Like we will travel to places for free to go out and kill it.
Well, how about you? You travel all over the place to what you want to do, and you're traveling hours and hours upon to get to, NEW shows. And Jacob brought that up in the interview. I mean, I think that in itself alone shows your determination, your drive.
And a lot of them, even when I'm in like indie locker rooms, they see that in the ring. It's like, oh, wow, these guys really want to be here, because we'll go out there and kill it, no matter if we make $10 or nothing, because it doesn't matter to me. Like I'm doing it because I love it.
I've been saying this all the time. Thank you for saying that, because the last few shows I have been saying that, let's be honest, we're not getting rich off this. We're doing it because we're wrestling fans. You guys love this sport. And at the end of the day, that's what all should bond us. I just think, to me, that's just the most, to me, no-brainer of a thing to say or even think.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I want to also bring up here an Instagram for Mr. Powersurge, because if you want to follow him on Instagram, you can actually do that here. So I want to make sure we support those here that are with us. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can have it here. You see, I'm working on all the technologies. People like when I put all the visuals, and you can see Mr. Powersurge himself right here and see all the different things. And look at even this here. Wrong thing here. Look at this on what he does for Strongman. Are you sure you're like in movies? Are you sure you're not real? Because I watched this earlier today, and I'm like, wait a minute. How did he do that? And you literally did that there. And you just literally could have took his arm off. I mean,
Yeah, he was going around that day always saying that I was just to wrestle. And I thought he meant in the ring, but he meant to arm wrestle. I'm like, Okay.
Your arms look bigger than my body. I mean, I don't know how he would have decided. There's good old Gabe Sayers. I mean, Gabe, I'm sure was smart enough not to challenge you in an arm wrestling contest. I'm sure, pretty much, right?
No, enjoying watching though.
Oh, knowing Gabe, he loves to watch things. Yes, he definitely loves to
Yeah.
watch things, and I'm glad that I'm here and not there because that definitely looked like it hurt. So we want to make sure that we put that off the screen. But I did want to pull something up which I thought was really cool. You kind of transition before I come back to Mr. Matthews and some things in New Underground Wrestling. Was you actually have a certificate of this, which I thought was very cool. And for those that are listening and watching, you were actually a certified personal trainer. And I'm just curious about that and what inspired you to get into personal training, and how do you use some of those things maybe to help out others and who you share locker rooms with?
I've always been a fan of that since I was a senior in high school, actually, and I just started working out for track, and I fell in love with it. And I went to college for it for a couple of years. I didn't finish, but I just ended up years later taking the test, and
Okay.
I read my books, and I researched everything and studied and took that test last year. And a lot of it with like helping out wrestlers, just like and what I always tell like a lot of people in our group, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, but you should want to be fit, especially if you're doing this. You don't have to walk around looking like Batista or John Cena.
There's very few people in the backyard in the underground, and I say this very lovingly. There are very few guys that I can honestly say that look like Batista, that may look like Brock Lesnar or anybody else in the backyard in the underground. Very few. You might actually be in that very few class, by the way, Mr. Powersurge.
When I came on the scene in 2018, I met a lot of the guys, a lot more of the guys. I met Jake in 2017. They all looked at me because no one else had really worked out at that point. And here I come a week off of competing in a strongman competition. And they're just kind of like, what is that? And I do remember not long after that, a lot more people started working out.
Well, I'm sure after that, they were going to definitely work out. Do you ever look back and say, okay, I was here 10 years ago when you first started in, let's say, fitness competitions to kind of where you are now?
Yeah, it's been quite the long journey. I mean, because I started backyard wrestling in 2006.
Oh, wow. So you're even ahead of Jake then. What a small world.
You're a year ahead of Jake. And we did it for a couple of years then we came back on YouTube with my own federation in 2015. And then we ended up meeting Jake through 2017. And I've just always loved it.
This is a great question because I kind of asked Jake some of this. I'm going to get to Jake in a few minutes, I promise. But how do you think backyard wrestling has changed from, let's say, when you got into it nearly 20 years ago to today? How do you feel it's changed?
I think a lot more nowadays. It's like you still have the hardcore matches and everything like that, because there's a lot of people especially the early 2000s, late 90s, that was really that style.
For sure.
But I think more nowadays they're focused on just being wrestlers, not I have to hit you with this. and I love both.
I was going to ask you that. Do you like that change? Do you think it should be the same the way it was then? I mean, I'm just curious on that.
I think both have their places, but I think I want to use for moderation, but there should be a mix.
Yeah, I think that there's always moderation. Anything is good. And obviously we see here some of the stuff that you do outside the ring to kind of keep you in shape. I mean, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I don't know how you mess with this man. Even his dog looks like he's bigger than most people. I mean, what this man does is just certainly speaks volumes. That's why, again, he literally lifts like 3 people in one, what he does here. That's why he's, certainly who he is. If you want to follow Powersurge, you can do that here on his Instagram. And of course, get us ready here. And, I had to pull this up for fun. So, would you ever think that you met Big Papa Pump and you'd almost become like his physique all these years later? I mean, I had to bring that one up. I thought that was just hysterical.
Back then, I would have never even thought that. But as we progress, I look back at it now. I'm like, that was kind of a fitting moment.
Do you have a Steiner math moment?
Oh God, no.
I was listening to him. It was the other day, and he was in the UK because we do a lot of stuff in the UK, and the person that set it up actually is somebody I know. I don't want to say on the air what I think of them, but I happen to know that the person who set it up very well. And they were asking about Steiner math, and he said, "Oh, I didn't really. I just went out there and did it." So I mean, he didn't think it was going to be like what it became out to be, but that's his Steiner math moment with you, more or less.
I couldn't cut a promo like that. That's why.
Well, you don't have to. You're obviously Powersurge. You literally don't have to do that. And I want to say hello to Mr. Jake Matthews, and obviously there is Jake, and I think it's a good segue for me to bring up Mr. Matthews. And obviously Mr. Matthews had a lot to say. Speaking of Mr. Matthews, it reminds me of Boy Meets World, and certainly Mr. Matthews brothers and Corey Matthews and Eric Matthews. I wonder if he's related to the guys from Boy Meets World. Maybe I should ask that question next time he comes on the show. But Jake Matthews obviously says a lot. He backed it up when we saw it Anti-Everything, when he won the Born in the Battle briefcase. And you certainly have a relationship with him. And he spoke a lot about kind of, the back and forth that you've had. You've formed this group, Redux. And I mean, just talk to me about what makes Jake Matthews kind of tick and what has made him who he is today.
Oh, man.
I know, it's a big question.
Hard-hitting one. He is without a doubt, and I know he doesn't always say so, but he's a very underrated, actual wrestler. But I love watching Jake work and tell a story in the ring, whether it's a hardcore match or a regular match. I know he prefers a certain style, and I love those ones because I'm always enthralled by what Jake does. Because, funny story, whenever I'd be in the ring, and if Jake was on the outside, he was the one pop I could hear. I always knew if I could pop Jake, I'm doing good. And if it was always vice versa, he always tries to pop me with things. And we've always been that way.
How has that shaped you in what you do?
He helped develop my style. Like he said before when he was on, he showed me how to forearm.
Oh wow, okay.
He showed me how to throw proper forearms and do it right. He's like, Tim, you can hit me. And when I did it, I'm sure a lot of people regret him saying that nowadays. But I went from being like, if Tim doesn't connect to, hey, can you ease up?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, listen, looking at you, I mean, if you hit me, I don't think I'm going to see tomorrow. I'm really going to probably never get up again. So I could certainly see why that, somebody or anybody in the locker room, would say those things. And so I have to ask, who's stopping Redux? I mean, obviously we're going to see you guys back in action tomorrow in Vortex, but who is going to stop Redux? I think that's the big question that I should be asking you. And, for the world that's fans of New Underground Wrestling, that's going to watch Vortex and get ready for Stay Alive. I mean, who is stopping you guys?
I don't see anyone on that roster stopping us. They can never get to us one-on-one. We always have the numbers advantage and the strength advantage, for one thing.
Well, then I guess at this point, are you saying that everybody should just give up and just, not even, go out there and compete against you guys, more or less? Just kind of say, you know what, take the rest of the night off and just don't bother? Is that what you're telling us?
I could, but where would the fun in that be then?
That's true, but I always give that option to wrestlers on the air, so in case that they actually want to take that option, maybe they could save themselves the punishment from being hit by you. I just thought that would be a good idea, just thought it'd be just,
I mean, they could try, but I don't see that working out well.
That's true too. I mean, certainly, somebody has to compete out there. That's for sure. But I do want to actually get to before I do that with Mr. Matthews. I actually want to take this off the screen and I want to put this on the screen because this is going to probably go down memory lane. I've been working on a couple of different things. Plus, I'm going to present to you something in a few minutes, which if I don't do it, I'm going to never forget or never remember. But obviously, we see here some stuff with you and Jake, and we've got this little video here and this video package and. I mean, I know it's from, the past, but, just what's it like locking up in the ring against him? Jake talked about the fact that you guys have squared off with each other before and you guys just go out there. That's what you do. You guys have even squared off in the ring in New York, actually, in upstate New York. And just, what's it like going up in the ring against him when that time has come?
I know we both have the same mentality when going into matches, way we hype each other up. We get in we get into it. Like, I know we can go out there and just literally kill each other and still have nothing but respect for one another. And I've wrestled some of my best matches against him and have very fond memories wrestling Jake and some scars.
I would imagine at this point. I mean, listen, everybody that comes onto the platform, we had Anthony Steele come on Sunday, and he wrestled a match with DJ Walbert. He was bleeding profusely, where he talked about after the match, he goes to ER, and obviously we inducted Anthony in our Hall of Fame. And I asked him, so, I mean, how did you, get up after the match? And he was like, well, I was told that if I didn't get up, I was going to have to get up, and I got up. And then he talked about the fact that he actually went out and wrestled in a Rumble right afterwards, and they said that if he had bled on the canvas, that was the moment he'd be thrown out of the Rumble, and that's what happened. He went to ER, but yeah, we see some of the stuff there, and this is not for the faint-hearted there, ladies and gentlemen. I mean,
No.
certainly stuff that I wouldn't recommend kids try this at home, and but it's hard to have that though with somebody. Most people, if you're friends with somebody, you're close with them, you can't have what you guys have had in the ring. I mean, you even hit him with a skateboard. I mean, what was that like, hitting somebody with a skateboard, on a side note?
Well, that was also a skateboard that had thumbtacks on it too.
Oh, I didn't really see that part in the outside, but maybe I'm sure Jake's body certainly didn't agree that that was a fun moment. And
No,
I mean,
it didn't, but he gets me back. I remember that.
but I'm just curious though. You have a bond with somebody like Jake. How it's very hard to be able to put that aside and have what you've had in the ring. I mean, how do you guys do that?
A lot of it is a mutual respect to be the best. Like, we know we're gonna both go out there and do our best to be the man to win that match, and there's never any hard feelings.
Well, that's always good to know, because there's definitely some hard feelings toward your back and his back when I watch some of this stuff.
Oh, definitely.
I told you I'm trying to work on my stand-up comedy, but Mr. Matthews would like to say Powersurge is the man. I'm very grateful to have a brother like him in my life, inside and outside of wrestling. That's very kind words of him. It's very, very Jake Matthews like.
I would take a bullet for that man.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, that's what it's all about. To break the fourth wall. That's, to me, what all wrestling matters is about. It's about bond. It's about friendships. And that's why I'm very excited about New Underground Wrestling and their most recent show coming up, which is going to be tomorrow. It's called Vortex 23. You can also stay alive 2 weeks from this Saturday on April the 13th. And every match is going to be decided not by pinfall or submission, but the winner has to knock out their opponent. And if you want to support New Underground Wrestling, you have so many different ways, and Powersurge. You can do that here, and I've been putting up the displays all throughout the show tonight because I want everybody to support them. I've got my own Jake Matthews shirt, so make sure you support New Underground Wrestling. YouTube at New Underground Wrestling. You can also check them out on Patreon. They have a Patreon page. Everybody's got Patreon. Go out and support these guys. Nonstop Entertainment Wrestling. They do a phenomenal job. And also Facebook, catch them. And they've got shows coming up, and we're getting ready for the season. Season 6 is on the way, and my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. And I'm going to be back tomorrow also with more coverage. I'm going to be covering the fallout from SmackDown with a bunch of guys from Sportswire Radio, and I'm going to be here Monday night, 8:30 p.m. with Rad Dad, the GTS Intercontinental Champion. So if you have your questions, anything GTS related, anything to Rad Dad or the Stepdads, he'll be here live on Sportswire Radio. It'll be a real treat for the ages, and it's a real treat to watch Jake Matthews and Powersurge hit each other. But I'll tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad it's not me being hit by those shots, because if it was me, I don't think I'd be here anymore, and maybe Powersurge would be taking over Sportswire Radio, but he doesn't want to do that. We'd have Ace Reed instead do that. But looking at these shots, I mean, definitely these guys are definitely no shot callers, to quote a former Diddy song, because Diddy's going to be nowhere these days because he's in a lot of trouble if you're following Twitter. But look at that move there. That shows your move set in that what you can do in the ring. I mean, you must have a lot of influences in terms of just move set. You said you watch other people's matches. Do you, even from your opponents, get maybe ideas on different moves and such?
Oh yeah, a lot of the times I'll see them do something and I'll watch it on repeat and be like, I think I can do that.
Well, I'm sure you can, knowing your moveset and everything else that you bring to the table. I'm certainly not going to argue that, but I got to ask you a fun question before I present to you something. You have a reel out there on YouTube with Jamie Tyler's where you literally power bombed him on the outside. Look like you power bombed him. I think he was onto a chair or a table. And I was wondering what that was like because that reel went viral. I think it has like 7,000 views at this point. And you have any memories? I think it was about two plus years ago. And just anything you remember about that and why it went viral?
It just that one really took. That was like our first video to hit that many views. I remember, and we just couldn't figure it out because like that match took place December of 21.
Yeah, it was 2.5 years ago almost now, and I was like wondering about that.
It was at a show here in Pennsylvania actually, and it was a Christmas event. And I remember he jumped out. I threw him on the table. Unfortunately, luckily, we just missed all the presents they had just raised for gifts.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas. Luckily, we missed that. I'm like, oh God. I remember thinking, yeah, we were like a couple of inches over. I just remember that, like we almost crushed them.
You might have had a lump of coal that Christmas.
Oh, big time.
So it's kind of cool though. You had that many views. I mean, it's like, oh wow, I had that many views for just one move. I mean, I just thought that would be fun to note. I just thought, yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of stuff out there on the on the New Underground YouTube page. It has like 9,000, 11,000. When you have reels out there with that many views, I ask wrestlers this all the time, but I'll ask you the same question. What is that like?
To me, it's amazing. Like the fact that we can put out something that can reach that many people is always amazing to me. Like one of our first big shows that went viral was Broken Dreams. And I think it was the first one. And we uploaded it and we just hit right. And a lot of people were sharing it. Ended up on wrestling playlists. It went like 3,000, like really quick. We're like, what? So we were all so happy and thrilled that like one of our shows like did that. And it's an amazing feeling.
What does it mean to you to be the New Underground Wrestling Northeast champion?
It means a lot to me that they trust me, in all fairness, to carry this belt with, despite the fact I might be not the nicest person on camera. But to trust me with that division is an honor. I will carry it for as long as I can.
Looking at you, you might carry it for the next 50 years. I mean, you'll probably be alive till you're like 120 with your certainly diet, your physique, your routine. You might be 120. You might be one of those people that lives forever. But I also wanted to ask you, what did it mean to you to be the world champion for over a year? What was that like in terms of being the champion as long as you were? I think that's a tremendous, accomplishment. We just had a guy on Champion Charlie who was a champion in his promotion over in the UK for 581 days. And I asked, you the same question. What does that mean to you to be champion for that long when you were?
It was a huge honor to be given the ball and just full on sprint and take off with it. That was my first really big chance because Jake, in all fairness, but Jake really saw something in me that not a lot of people did at the time. When we were in our first crossover federation back in 2017, 2018, I was essentially a jobber, for lack of a better term.
Well, I mean, I don't like to use the derogative terms with Sportzwire because it's all wrestling, but I understand your point. I understand. Because I always feel like everybody has to lose it, in wrestling. It is.
Like I felt like I could do more. I'm not saying I wanted to win more.
Sure, I understand totally.
And I never got the opportunity to because it's just the guy running it didn't like my type of physique.
Typical politics, typical usual nonsense. Yeah, I figured.
But it was the first one to really see something and be like, if we just work with him, there's something there. And like he gave me that opportunity and I busted my ass to take that chance.
Did it make it extra special then when you were the world champion to have held it as long as you did because of what you went through? Obviously, we're also talking about the time you went through some of the personal health issues that you went through. And then, to go through that inside the ring, but then to be given this responsibility, like what did it make it extra special?
Yes, the fact that they trusted me with that, it meant a lot to me, and that I could keep going out there and like doing what I do, and like them being like, that's what we want. You want to keep doing that? Like that was always good for me.
Sure.
And I never expected it to hold that long. Never. It kept getting extended and extended. And I out there just to kill it. Like, cause my mentality is like, if I'm the main event, I'm gonna go out there and show why I'm the main, why they put me here.
You're going to laugh. It reminds me of my interviews on Sportswire sometimes. I'm like, well, I'm only going to go 30 minutes. And it goes 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes. Sometimes it's like 3 hours. In fact, Joshua Allen, the TBW owner, once said I should be on the air like 24 hours for the whole day. And I'm like, I guess people want to kill me on the air. Maybe that's what they want. But speaking of people who are doing a great job out there in my Hall of Fame, he is the host of the Nemesis Sessions. His name is none other than Mr. James Taylor. And James, if you're looking for some great guest to interview, I think Jake Matthews and Powersurge should be right up your alley. James has about 109,000 followers between TikTok and YouTube. He's got a couple of clips out there with like 1 million or 2 million views. So, James, you got to get in touch with Powersurge. He's got a great story, great journey. He's a personal trainer, been a bodybuilder, he's done fitness competitions. He's only been the new Underground Wrestling Northeast champion for almost a year now. Definitely be a great guy to speak with. Jake Matthews, 15-year veteran in the world of backyard wrestling, going on 16 years. I mean, he's had a great career. He's got a company, New Underground Wrestling, which I really, really enjoy, and you should find a way to get in touch with these guys. In fact, you can actually do it here very simply, Mr. James Taylor. You can actually do it right here through their YouTube channel. All the great links that are here. As a matter of fact, you got them here through Instagram. You got them through Facebook. You got them through Patreon. So if you want to get in touch with everybody here in the world of New Underground Wrestling, like Jake Matthews, like Powersurge, all you have to do is message them through here, and maybe we can make that happen. Powersurge has been Northeast champion since May 6, 2023. So, yeah, it's about 10 and a half months, maybe going 11 months. So there you go, 1 year. And the promoter loved Flippy Boys. I don't think I'm going to go and ask you any questions about that on Sportswire. I'm going to leave that there. But what I will ask you, which hopefully you'll give us a good answer on, is how excited are you for this season upcoming?
Oh, God, very. I think it's some of our best stuff we've produced so far. Like everything that we do with each other, we always go out there and improve and improve and improve. So I'm ecstatic for people to get to see as everything progresses.
Do you think that this is the best season ahead coming up?
It's definitely getting there.
Well, it's funny. You always look at, if you're ever a fan of music or movies, right? You get the musician or the actor, and they'll ask, oh, is this your favorite movie? Yeah, is this your favorite album? And they usually say yes. And they say because it's the most recent one, but you actually gave a kind of honest answer. Well, we'll have to see and find out. And of course, you can do that here on the YouTube channel of New Underground Wrestling. And in the meantime, Vortex is coming up tomorrow. You have Stay Alive April 13th, and he's going to be in the ring defending his championship against D Savage. And he's going to be in the ring against D Savage as a part of Redux. Also, we'll see if Prince Chandler shows up. But, while I had a chance, before I get to a few more things, I now finally wanted to have the opportunity, Powersurge, to actually present to you something, only if you insist. Now, I know you're a busy man. You kill everybody in the ring, outside the ring. You are literally the walking definition of a true physical specimen. I mean, you literally probably have no body fat. You could probably kill somebody. I mean, that arm wrestling contest, you probably could have. I mean, Gabe Sayers thankfully was there watching and laughing, standing up. Not there because poor Gabe wouldn't be able to come back to Sportswire, promote TF Club. I'm only kidding. I'll get to Gabe in a few minutes, but I did actually, Mr. Powersurge, want to present to you something that would officially maybe recognize you here in Sportswire Radio, but only if you insisted.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you said yes, because I want to officially now declare you, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, you are officially the strongman of Sportswire Radio. Congratulations, because I couldn't think of a better person that would actually fit this bill, because looking at the size of who you are, looking at the shape, looking at what you do outside of the ring, I mean, this is a pretty much easy no-brainer. that on this date of March 28th, 2024, that you have officially been recognized the strongman of Sportswire Radio. So congratulations, hopefully.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. So I'm certainly glad that you have this, and we'll certainly send you the copy while we're off the air and anything else in between. But, well, as I get to a few other things, I did want to ask you, I mean, you have any funny Gabe Stayer stories to share? Obviously, Leonidas is a huge part of this. I know you're not a big fan of Leonidas in the ring, but you have any funny Gabe Stayer stories or anything you might want to share about Mr. Sayers, the TF Crew promoter, and the man that Jimmy Controversy called, I think, his Pro Wrestling Venom wife yesterday? I think it was him and Angel Santiago who referred to that. So I do have to bring up Gabe Sayers, and if you had anything you want to say on Gabe.
Gabe, one of my favorite times hanging out with Gabe was after one of the shows, and he was prank calling people. We have it on our vlogs and on a different channel, but
yeah, Gabe's a big vlogger. Gabe is a big vlogger. That I know very well.
We called Jake's brother. Like, we just messed with people. That was funny. That's one of my favorite memories of Gabe.
Did you do, but I think it was Bart Simpson's on The Simpsons. He went into, he did a prank phone call. I think he kept calling up, was at the time in Springfield, Moe's Bar, the bar there. And I was wondering, by any chance, did Gabe call, don't say it on the air if you don't have to, but did he ever call up, somebody and ask for, hey, can I get, 20 large pizzas and send it to, so-and-so's? Because I think that would be, the most hilarious. I think Macaulay Culkin's character, Kevin McAllister, did that in Home Alone. I think he did a prank call kind of similar to that. I mean, by any chance, did Mr. Sayers attempt to do any of that? Because I think that would be a story if you only wanted to share it on the air.
Well, the one person we did call, he asked if they were going. I think they asked if they were going to one of the bars that was local.
Oh, okay.
Name the bar.
Yeah, don't name the bar. Don't name the bar.
No, I'm not. But he named it in the phone call, and then the people on the phone yeah, we're actually heading there now.
Yeah, don't name the bar. Okay, say no more.
So we knew that, and then we just started that. We messed with them so much. We were on the phone for them for 15 minutes.
Oh my god! You know what? I'm not even going to say anything about that. But I do want to, before I get to Jake, say hello to my very good buddy out there who is listening all the way out in the UK, and it's 1:13 in the morning, his time, and I'm wondering, you're up and do you sleep at all? Because I see you all the time on my shows. And this person is related to a person named Mr. Brad Coleman, who's going into my Hall of Fame coming up 2 weeks, coming up from this Sunday. He'll be here at 8 o'clock British Standard Time. When he says morning, he's a huge wrestling fan. He's actually been a former world champion in a past life and a tag team champion. So he knows about winning, and he knows about saying things for the right reasons and doing things for the right reasons. And he says morning. And Gabe kissed Jeff Nova. I'm not going to ask you anything about that. What I will say, though, is that Jeff Nova's wrestling Gabe Sayers, I hear coming up at the big TF Crew show, because Gabe kind of announced that here right before his birthday. And, that'll be a doozy of a match, Gabe Sayers and Jeff Nova. Do you want to talk anything about that rather than Gabe kissing Jeff Nova?
I have no comment on that.
Good enough. But any thought on Gabe coming back to the ring, though? Because Gabe, like you, dealt with a major personal issue in terms of a health problem. And, did you give Gabe, by any chance, any advice on anything in terms of his comeback, in terms of what he's going to do in the ring? Because I think that's actually kind of an interesting similarity you and him have.
Yes, I never actually got to talk to Gabe fully about that. But I've seen him recently from that one video, but he's doing great. He seems to be doing great.
Being trained by Mario Mancini. How cool is that? Mario Mancini and Paul Roma. I mean, those guys are not only have they been in the tabloids about what's going on in WWE, I am not going there, but the fact that those guys had really decorated careers for all those years in the WWE, especially Paul Roma. Paul Roma had a great career. He wrestled everywhere. And Mario Mancini was kind of like the guy that everybody that would come into WWE and kind of test their skills to. So the fact that he's being trained by them, I mean, that's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, yeah. He's got a hell of an opportunity there.
Oh, bigger. He's got Jimmy Controversy that he's learning from. And Jimmy Controversy is a freaking big deal in his own right. So good old Gabe, and I'm sure Gabe will come back. And Brad says, my ears are burning. Who said my name? I did, because we're going to put you in the Hall of Fame coming up 2 weeks from now. I was curious also, before I get to a few other things, where in Pennsylvania are you?
My hometown is Montoursville, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Near where it's 15 minutes where they do the Little League World Series.
Oh, okay. Williamsport.
Yes.
Oh, I know that very well. That was always I always watched the Little League. Well, not as much now because I'm not in Little League anymore. But yeah, I remember. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and we'd always, I always remember like the end of summer would be the Little League World Series. So in a way, I liked it, but I was kind of sad at the same time because that meant school was right around the corner. But sure, I know the Little League World Series very well. That's kind of cool. Did you go into the Little League World Series because you grew up near there, or what?
Believe it or not, I only ever went there one time.
Oh wow, okay.
A lot of it, especially for the people that live around there, they're not fans of it because of all
Oh,
the.
I would imagine that, that's the same thing as like in Cooperstown, New York. There's the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I actually happen to have known somebody that had a summer home in Cooperstown, New York. He had family live there, and I asked him this question years ago. I'm like, do people that live in Cooperstown, do they love the Baseball Hall of Fame because it's like in their town? They go, nope, they absolutely hate it. They want nothing to do with it. They dread the summer. So it's kind of probably the same thing for the people in Williamsport. I hadn't thought of it that way. You probably, I gotta mention my buddy Van Hansen to you. Van Hansen and Kid Mike, they have the company's Enterprise and Amplified Pro Wrestling, which is not too far from where you live. I have to make sure to see if they know about you. Okay, good enough there. All right, so obviously, in the interest of time, it's been an absolute honor to have you. And if you want to follow NEW, I'm going to actually make sure you can pull it up here right back on the screen. So there you go. If you want to follow them, you can do that here on all these great platforms. You can do it very simply on YouTube. Watch the shows upcoming, and we're going to pull Brad Coleman's comments so I can actually get people to see it. You got everything, all the great stuff. But I want to ask you in terms of what is your final words for D Savage coming up at Stay Alive, and anything you want to say to the audience before tomorrow's show?
Well, for Savage, you better strap in, bud, because you're in for the long haul. If you think you're beating me.
Ooh, strong words, boy. That's really, really strong words there. I don't know if I'm D Savage. I still continue to say maybe I should consider to reevaluate my plans and not show up. Let me ask you then this. Is the best yet to come for Redux?
Oh, without a doubt. Stay tuned for that one.
Okay. So you're very confident that Jake has the Born to Battle briefcase and he's going to make sure he knows how to handle his business with that. So you're very confident that he has the briefcase and, he will make sure that he does what he needs to do without going into too further details.
Matthews is a smart man. He knows exactly what to do.
Fair enough. I'm certainly not going to argue with you in anything you say. I did want to ask you this question, and if you had one or two moments that stand out most in your career, it could be anything. I could even say as a bonus if it's in wrestling, if it's ever in fitness competitions or anything that you do. Is there one or two moments that stand out most?
Yes. For me personally, it wasn't even like the winning the title, the NEW title, was the big one. But I think an even bigger one for me was when I lost it, because I lost it to Jake. And there's been a few matches in my career that afterwards we embrace, and only we know what's said. So like those moments for me.
Yeah, don't say it on Sportswire because it'll come right back to me.
Yeah. But like the moments that we share that only we know about, those are very special to me. And just for me, every time I'm with them, they're my family.
I think it's very hard to have a bond with what you guys have in New Underground Wrestling. And obviously getting a chance to know what the product has, really through Gabe, by the way. I have to give a big shout out to Gabe Sayers, because if it wasn't for Gabe Sayers, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now, because Gabe, kind of in a way interviewing him and some of his talent in the TF crew who are actually in your company. Like obviously the likes of, Leonidas as an example. Again, a guy you're probably not much of a fan of, but, in terms of just really Gabe, I think it's because of him I'm here speaking to you, and obviously Jake, but it's very hard to have a family-like atmosphere that you have. I hear things without going into details about different companies, and this person doesn't like the other person, this person leaves. But with you guys have such a strong bond, and I think maybe that's the most important thing about what you guys have accomplished, more than whether you've got the most views or maybe the most followers or, whatever else you're going to do. I think that speaks more volumes to the kind of company and the kind of atmosphere that you guys have. And, how hard is that to have the bond that you have between all of you?
It's very hard because like we're such we become such a close knit group that when we let new people in, it's awkward for them at first because obviously it's like,
Sure.
and it's like, here's this big family and you're kind of over here, but we always try to make people feel welcome. And the best times, like, I love what we do in the ring, but I absolutely adore what we do outside of it. Those nights.
You know, it's funny you say that because I interviewed a lot of people in my career. I've been doing this for 5 years. I've interviewed college basketball players, coaches, professional athletes. And, the word when somebody's successful or a thing is successful, what I've always found over the years is the term family. And why is that important? And that's important because there's a trust, there's a bond, and it allows you guys to go out and do with what you want to do with rather ease and comfort. And there's no there was a term I would use growing up, always kind of like your guard would be up. It was almost like you guys don't have that. And I think that the term family, when anything is successful, you have that. Nobody can break that. And I just think that when you say that term family with what you guys have at, NEW, I think that that's kind of the term I've heard from anybody that's been successful that has come on throughout my career on this platform.
Definitely. Family is everything to me. And that's why I think a lot of it clicks so well is because we all love each other. So it's like we want to go out there and each one of us wants to kill it to step it up to the next match. Like that's why we watch everything. If it's the opening match, the second match, this match, oh, let's go. I want to top that.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that because, there's a lot of guys and gals that come on here and I hear, oh, well, this, and that. I was, without naming names, in the UK, there was a wrestler I was speaking with who's a world heavyweight champion, significant champion. He was telling me things I couldn't even repeat on the air. And I wasn't surprised he said that. But clearly, I was waiting for him to say it about 3 months ago. But the point is that not everybody has that. But the fact that, and I could see that you guys have that, I think it shows as to why you guys do well. In a lot of ways, you guys are kind of like a small business success story, kind of like an American dream, a mom and pop company that's made it. You guys are going on 6 years strong. Look at what you've done. Look at all the great talent that you have. This Riot in the Ring event coming up, which has attracted people from all over the United States. I mean, that shows that you guys are going a lot of places, and that's why I want people to follow you. I want to say hello to somebody else. That is Mr. Darkron. He is one half of the tag team champions in the IMF. He is a part of their foundation. He's in my Hall of Fame, and he says hello. And, speaking of that, I want to ask you two more questions before closing thoughts. So first is, what would you want to say to anybody that hasn't watched New Underground Wrestling as to why they should watch it?
Because I feel we put out some of the best product in the sense of knowing in our minds, the way we see it is like, go out there like no one can outwork you.
Yes.
Like, go out there with that mentality and go out there to kill it. And I feel like it shows coming through our product.
I agree that there's a flow. I think what stands out most compared to what a lot of companies I watch on the platform is there's a linear flow to the shows and that it all makes sense. And I think that shows why the company's been successful in that you watch the content, whether it's your match or anybody else's matches on the show, it makes sense. It doesn't go like a sore thumb that sticks out, which I don't have a sore thumb. And Mr. Darkron actually watches you guys, and he says you guys have great personalities and storytelling. So there you go. And his company, by the way, is on YouTube. Check them out. They're at Dark Cryptic Wrestling. They do a phenomenal job. They're in the state of Ohio, which is not too far from Massachusetts. And maybe some of these guys like Matthew Forsaken, like maybe Darkron, maybe they would want to step up in the Riot in the Ring because we know that Hardcore and Total Effing Chaos are not going to be there. So maybe if there's a way we can get New Underground Wrestling to see if they can contact Darkron or Matthew Forsaken. Those guys have been hardcore wrestlers. Those guys have gone out there and put their bodies through a number of things. I would think that would be a great thing. And by the way, that Mr. Forsaken, he's just celebrated a birthday. What a way to celebrate his birthday by maybe putting him in the Riot in the Ring. So I'm just saying, maybe if there's a way to get in touch with these great companies, we could figure that out. But I want to ask you one more question before I close. I know you're a busy man. You're going to go kill some people afterwards. You're going to have a carnivore diet that nobody else has ever had. But, I know Mr. Matthews is coming back on in a few weeks, and we're going to put him in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So I want to ask you conversely, How would you like to be in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame the next time you come on the show?
I would be very appreciative of that.
Well, you know what? I think we're going to make that happen because, well, it's my committee. I'm the only person that decides, and it's going to be my show, and nobody else can take that away from you. So I think maybe toward the end of the month of April, before some big shows and the season starts, we could have you back onto the platform and put you into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame because, after all, you are kind of the definition of sports because, after all, you actually do fitness competitions. You're a bodybuilder. You've actually done arm wrestling competitions. You could probably be like one of those movies, the Sylvester Stallone movie, Over the Top. That could have definitely been you. I mean, you probably could have been in that movie. You probably could have acted in it. So I think we're going to make that happen. Mr. Matthews is going to come back on here in a couple of weeks. I think we're going to have him on either right before or right after Stay Alive. Maybe right one of those things here. So we're going to definitely make that happen. We're going to have more of the guys come onto the platform because I like New Underground Wrestling. I think it's a fantastic product, and I want to showcase it because it's about all wrestling matters. We're going to definitely make that happen. And also, DKW congratulates you, and he says he'd love to see you guys, love to meet you. So there you go there. And we're going to make that happen. So stay tuned for a date. It's been absolute honor to have you. Obviously, I want to put up here one more time. You've officially, in the meantime, been recognized as our strong man of Sportswire Radio. So now I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you'd like to plug, share, or say, my friend? The floor is absolutely yours, and take it away.
I just want to say thank you again for having me very much. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode and keep in there for Stay Alive.
Amen to that. And again, if you want to follow the guys on Instagram, you can get all the links in the description below. And if you also want to check out and see a preview of what's to come, you're going to see it all from me. Got a whole stack of people here. And again, Leonidas is a guy, I have been talking about him for months. I may actually have to get him on Sports by one of these. Then we see Tyson Spade, who certainly he had a few things to do with D Savage at the last show, and obviously we see the match that everybody's waiting for. I mean, look at this photo shot. This is going to be one for the ages, and it does kind of look like Prince Chandler is thinking about maybe he shouldn't show up or should show up. So maybe that's actually a good reason why you said that later on. But if you want to follow the guys, do that here on Instagram, and thank you for that, Dark Crown. I hope you're doing well, by the way. Dark Crown, I hope you're doing well. And anything I could do to help you, please let me know. Obviously, you're going through a couple different things off the air, but my friend, congratulations. It's been an absolute honor to have you. I look forward to having you on here next month when you take your place in history as a member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame alongside many of the greats that have been on here in Sportswire Radio, but also, most importantly, well, let's say Mr. Jake Matthews, because after all, he is the Born to Battle briefcase winner, your best friend, and the supposed best on the card. But he's definitely got my vote on that. And thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, that is here. The new Underground Wrestling Northeast Champion, closing in on 1 year, the one and only Powersurge, who's going to be in the ring tomorrow as a part of Redux. And he's also going to be in the ring April 13th at Stay Alive against D Savage for his Northeast Championship, where the winner wins it not by pinfall or submission, but by knockout. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. I'll be back here Monday night. I'll be here Monday night with Rad Dad, the GTS Intercontinental Champion, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be here tomorrow, post SmackDown coverage. And also, if you're here on sportswire.org, you're going back to your regular scheduled programming. And I also want to point out, Dark Crown said I'm feeling a lot better. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. And he'll be back in action next Friday. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see him on the show next Thursday because it's going to be the IMF takeover because they have their show at Rumble in the Center next Friday. So there you go. There you have it. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one global station that is Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters. And one more time, go watch Vortex tomorrow. Go support New Underground Wrestling and check out Stay Alive April 13th.